Hello, it's Karmatose, and welcome to a survey response reveal. Uh, Last week I posted a question of who did we think was the worst warlord for each region, as well as who was the best of the worst and the worst of the worst. After about 6 days of collecting results, we finally have just over 600. And I felt now was a good time to wrap up this survey. The responses really start to trickle in near the end. The bulk of your votes were at the beginning, and I am just super proud. I didn't think I was going to get this many responses. I thought I was going to get maybe a couple hundred, but 600 really blew me away, and especially that first 250 and 500 happening so quick, so early in the week. Anyway, I'm going to thumb through here, and we're going to take a look at who we as a community, who at least was exposed to this survey and decided to fill it out, thought was the best, and hopefully those who also could read English efficiently. So, let's take a look. Worst Warlord for Sons of Horus. Ezekiel Abaddon came in at 386 votes, 65% of the chunk, and moderate second place as Tarek Orgodon. So, not much surprise. A lot of people don't like Abaddon because his warlord power is completely anti-troop, and there's a lot of low troop or no troop turns that might happen, and you might find yourself not being able to capitalize on Abaddon very well. So, due to his high situationalness, and he doesn't have high initiative either, yeah, that's kind of where he is. Garvio Loken, on the other hand, only had 35 votes, but I love Loken. He's got that nice high initiative, bonus stats, 2 damage, so about expected. I expected Shavron Dar to win this one. I don't think anybody thought otherwise, although Karn has a pretty sizable chunk for second place, 349 votes versus 180. People who vote for Angron are, I think, confused and thinking this is the best vote. I don't know. And then a little chunk there for Elren as well. But, these were the two I was expecting, especially Dar. Worst Warlord for Emperor's Children. This one I was up in the air about, and it turns out we are right to be up in the air. This is a real close one. Fabius Bile at 271. Lucius at 247, just like a 30-vote margin there. So, arguably, we kind of have a tie as far as close a percentages as you can get. 30 for Saul, 30 for Fulgrim. I'm not sure who those 30 of each voters are, but I can kind of see where some people might think Fulgrim is the worst. Saul, though, is the best. Come on. And it's kind of fun because when you ask people who do you think is the worst, you start to actually kind of get a glimpse at who's actually the best based on who gets the least worst votes. It's not necessarily a 1-to-1, but I think it's neat. Death Guard. Alice Typhon gets the high vote at 411. And I'm kind of surprised at that. I mean, he had just recently got a buff where he could insta-destroy poisoned targets with multiple times on one turn, but people seem to still think that heal as your warlord power is not good, despite the fact that he has a pretty good win rate on high Terra and things. I suspect that this is kind of an indication that people don't like slow non-aggro. The less aggro you are, sometimes the more, I mean, they're all aggro there, but yeah, Chaos Typhon for that. Garrow had 94 votes there, and Garrow's a lot harder to work. When you win hard and very fast, but in hindsight, I might have actually changed my vote to Garrow. I think my original video I had Typhon, but I think Typhon's actually better than Garrow in hindsight, but can't argue with the numbers. Oryx, 60% for 356 with runner-up Falk. I suspect that this seemed like the proper order, where Perturbo's considered the least worst, and then Eric, well, yeah, everything here kind of fell right into place. Alpha Legion. Yeah, Dinet being the worst of them, followed by Ingo Peck, especially with all the demons now. Mr. Peck's having a really hard time. Little bitty slice for Alfarius. And Exodus. So that's exactly how I predicted that one. This, I think, is either the most landslide-ish victory, you know, Malkarian for the worst of the Night Lords. Nobody seems to be in any strong debate about that. 6 people thought Kurz, they need to get their head checked. Playmaster and Sevatar come in with a small handful of votes each, but very dominantly Malkarian, which is a shame. He has that battle honor, you know, he gets that bonus draw, and then he can give things bonus damage, but yeah, it's just don't quite have it. This one's a pretty close margin, closer than I thought it was going to be. I thought Phosis was going to have a runaway race here, but a lot of people do not like Ahriman. I guess giving precog when there's so much tactic control and things is just insufficient. And at least Phosis Takar, obviously Magnus is the best of them. He carries the whole damn Legion. And yeah, I thought Ammon would be second. So technically this is how I thought this would end up, but I just thought it would be a little more slanted. But yeah, Ahriman, I guess he's not that great. This was, I think, the most evenly distributed batch of votes. Wow, that got really close near the end. Argel Tall most of this time had the lead. But then I guess Erebus here is just a few votes behind. Only, what is that, 11 votes? So Argel Tall himself, and then Logar and Zardu. Zardu being the next potential worst. Logar. And there's 7 people that thought Rom was actually the worst. You can tell that these folks are the minority. So here's another big slant, but there's only 3 Warlords. Everybody agrees that Kyrus is probably the worst of Runestorm, with Kaban being the best and Korvax being the next best. So, and I've heard some good arguments provoked by this, that a lot of people think that Kyrus is actually better than Korvax, and we're going to actually see that the best of the worst is held by both of these two. So it depends on which side of the camp you are, and which camp you're in then says the other one's the best. Worst Warlord for Iron Hands. I'm disappointed. I thought Shadrach was going to get it. Duquesne. People, another sign that people don't like non-aggro warlords. When you have things like gain front line, heal adjacent, heal self, gain shield, as we're going to see with Custodes here in a sec. They don't like the slow boats. And then Shadrach, and of course Gabriel Santar. People love that control and that aggro. And Ferrus Manus, because, I mean, what Primarch is really going to win any of these? Primarchs are just great, generally. Salamanders. Cassian beats Nemator. I was wondering which one of these would win. He did get a good chunk of votes, 208 versus 340, but Cassian Vaughn with the 1 damage all, I guess, is considered worse than Nemator, which I'm a little surprised about, because if your enemy doesn't do any attacking, or just does all kinds of suicide attack where their troops die anyway, Nemator literally has no value. It's only when the enemy warlord's the one hitting you, or they're doing trades where they expect to live afterwards, and a lot of aggro doesn't rely on that, so Cassian at least can deal damage and has Survivor, I believe. Cassian has Survivor 5, so... And of course, 3 people thought Vulcan. Little minorities. Worst of the Warlords. Oh, the Raven Guard. This one's a closey. Nev won in the end for a while. I think 6. Vincenti actually was the lead, and eventually Agapito Nev took over. The other 2 are much smaller. That's what that looks like. Space Wolves. Gregor won. Not by a whole lot. This pretty close margin, 206 versus 262. People, I guess, think that Bolvi, since his nerf is up there as a big contender. People who voted their word make obviously have not played him. You're scrubs. Gregor Felhan, though. I guess the Berserk, mandatory Berserk. It's a good damage, it's high speed. This is a great contender for best of the worst, especially if we're excluding Demons of the Runestorm, I think. But that's how that one popped out. Oof, this one was skewed as the Night Lords for Custodes. Nobody likes Shapura. 499. Wait, I gotta check. Night Lords. 497. No, Shapura wins for the biggest landslide of votes for worst of your legion. And then the other three take up their little slots. Whoa. Look at that. A Primarch is actually not the least in this case. People actually think that Nasu is less worse than Constantine. Valdor, I'm slightly shocked. Every other Primarch is the tiny sliver. Oh, actually, maybe this one too. Nope, nope. Still the tiniest. Oof. Yeah, no surprise. Another slow boat Warlord. Ultramarines. Ramus won, which I heard some pretty good arguments that Gage is actually worse over Ramus, enough that I think you're going to see a Ramus video from me coming up. Between his battle honor and his survivor, you have an option to do trades, or you have an option to buff, or even to damage. So why, I guess the buff from Gage, though, generally people like more. And yeah, Bob beat out Thiel. Bob definitely would not have beat out Thiel during the Thiel buff, but as soon as he got nerfed back a little, I guess they're back to voting for Bob. Orphans of War. Har, I am not shocked at all, but Atesh did get a big chunk. I thought it would have been a little more landslidey, but this is another Warlord that got a big nerf from Survivor the whole board and was the best Warlord in the game to something that was much more manageable. And of course, Ulrak is best, and Nerat Kareen, even with his nerf, is a still great contender. Blood Angels, Miros. Yeah, I didn't know which one was going to win. This was kind of a 50-50, but 329 versus 196, that's a much bigger chunk, and obviously Sanguinius is the best here, come on. Worst of the Warlords for White Scars. I think a lot of people voted for this kind of based on what you read, because not everybody's had a chance to play against or play with a lot of this, or maybe this is being influenced by the event run. And I've actually been hearing that Khan, and actually, yeah, Khan is voted worse than a Quinn or Za. This is another instance of a Primarch is actually not the least worst. Apparently they're Mr. Za is the best, so. And some notes to consider there. Ooh, this is another even divide along with Word Bearers. Imperial Army. Who is the worst? Ornatov. Yeah, that's who I expected to be the worst. I am just surprised, though, at some of these other chunks. I didn't think Lucretia would get that many votes at all. Compared to, you know, I thought Assassin would get a chunk like that, but not Lucretia. And Lotara I can see, but Lotara is fun. You get those flanks. And Thaddeus Fali. He's better. The ability to generate any Imperial troop to your hand. I had somebody drop double Jubok in one turn on me today, so. Mechanicum. Proctor. This is why we see videos from some of our other compatriots that are like, Proctor works. Because of this statistic. People seem to hold Caleb. No, Kelbor is much better than Caleb. Come on. Really? Is it that close? 4-vote difference? And Proctor. I'm gonna have to visit Proctor and see if this is really true. Oof. I think this is actually the closest race off. And sadly, Ingethil wins. I thought it was gonna be Chaos Spawn, but this is another classic example that people don't like less aggro Warlords. I mean, they don't like Chaos Spawn either because he has 25 health, but at least he has sneak attack and can generate troops as opposed to being a 40 health, sit back and buff your troops slowly. The further away you are from direct aggro, the higher your worst count is. And his Vertex got some votes and captured. Yep, that's how I expected things. I just thought Chaos Spawn was going to win with that 25. Alrighty. This is not so easy to see, but we can see here that Kyrus is the winner of the best of the worst. This was, who do you think of all the people that you voted for that were the worst of their legion, which one of those were the best of all of them? And Kyrus is that winner, with second place being Korvax Future Blight. And that's again, if you thought Korvax was the worst for Demons of the Runestorm, then you were likely going to vote him the best of the worst. And then there's some other notable chunks here. Dynat is actually considered one of the best of the worst. Maybe carried by his Legion a bit. Karn, them. Yep. Gregor, Felhan, yep. Suku, yep. On, wow, 15. On 15. I'll have a better vote breakdown here of this in a sec. Up at the top. And the worst of the worst Warlord winner was Callous Typhon, with a second place of not too far behind Tripura. It's amazing how much more diverse the vote is when you give people a choice from everything. Because look at all these slivers for everything. Everybody thought somebody was worst of the worst. Eros, and stuff. But up here in the big slots, Ingathel at 28, Chaos Spawn at 30. So people who thought Chaos Spawn was the worst of that outnumbered the people that thought Ingathel was by a couple. So Tacticus, Baden, what is some other big chunks? Nemator, yep. Cassian, yep. Bosses, Araman. So a lot of those people that got, you know, the big chunks of their cake. Although you definitely don't see Nightlord fellow here. We can go to the question. I can go to question number 23. And we can see a little bit of a breakdown. Question left blank meant that somebody didn't want to go to the effort or didn't feel sufficiently passionate enough to vote for someone best of the worst. Farback Sutterblight, Karn, Grigol Frelhand, Amadeus, Fabius, 15, 15, 13, 12. So you start to see kind of a breakdown there. And for question 24, 67, 54. Yeah, more people left it blank than actually voted for anybody. So that's the real winner. Typhon, Ura, Baden, Chaos. Wait, did a Baden also make it on the other one? Ezekiel Abaddon is somewhat in the top 10. He's also considered one of the worst in the top 5. 4. 1, 2, 3rd. Oh wow, he beat out Chaos Spawn for worst of the worst. Nemator, Ingathel, Cassian, Tacticus. So anyway, I hope you folks enjoyed this this survey. Here's all your votes. This is what it actually looks like in a data sense. Woo! You can see where people left some slots blank. You can also see where people left like the entire row blank, where they just hit submit, or they closed out and it just pre-submitted, or I don't know what happened to response number 101. You can see all that data here. And if you want to get a sense of not what I meant to click, all right. Now we can insert a chart. We can see it based on timestamp. Most of your votes came in during the first day, and then that there is the second day, and then it really starts to break down. So really about 4 days or so, or less, is the right duration here for this kind of vote. 6 days in the long set, but we were getting down to like 1 vote every 4 hours as opposed to, you know, 100 votes an hour at the beginning. So just a little bit of a time sense there for you. And then just in case we wanted to get a better representation of worst of the worst, go to chart. There your folks are. Spreadsheets are cool. Anybody? Oh, said spreadsheets are cool. Anybody tells you otherwise. So I'll leave it on this note. What does this tell us? Shapura and Typhon need some love, as do some of the other big slices on this chart, probably. This was Karmatose. If you like this, like it. If you want to see more surveys like this, drop some comments. I am totally open for what the next survey is. I hope to have it done here in the next day, so throw some comments and what you would love to see next surveyed. Just keep in mind that votes are better when it's pictures I can show, and small groupings of votes tends to be less overwhelming for people. And therefore, if you do something like, what's the best card in the game, I'm not going to take a snippet of all 1,000 cards. Like, come on, I got a life. So you can think of a reasonable survey, like this Warlord one. It took me a little while to set up, but you know, and I have some ideas planned. But if you like this, like it. If you want to see more like it, subscribe. Drop some comments about these results. Let me know what you think. And I'll have another one up and running here in the next day or so. This was Karmatose. Thanks for watching.